Good morning. It's Saturday.
Oh no. Do we know who the outdoor boys are? Have we watched these people before?
Hey everyone, this is going to be my last video for a little while.
Oh no.
I've been making YouTube videos for 11 years now. First with the Catfish and Carp YouTube channel, then with this, the Outdoor Boys YouTube channel. And believe it or not, I've made 1,110 videos. It's been a wild ride. The amount of time and energy that I've dedicated.
Wait, this is an old vid? This is 5 hours ago.
To making YouTube videos is hard to communicate. So many late nights editing and packing and unpacking, camping with pneumonia, building log cabins while injured. But it's been a tremendous adventure and it's allowed me to provide for my family while making wonderful memories with my wife and kids. But even good things can be taken too far, and I think I'm starting to reach that point. But I'm not just talking about the time and energy I spend making YouTube videos, I'm also talking about the attention it brings. In just the last 18 months, this YouTube channel has gained about 12 million subscribers. And because of people stealing my content and posting it on other platforms, my family and I have been viewed about 4 billion times, in addition to the 2.8 billion views on YouTube. The sheer volume of fans trying to contact me, trying to take pictures with me, or just trying to come up and talk to me in public, it could be a bit overwhelming at times. And my wife and I, we both have real concerns about what this will do to our family if I keep growing my YouTube channel at this pace. And the time to stop is before this problem gets so out of hand that my family and I can't live normal lives. Now, there's more than one reason for making this decision, and I still enjoy making videos and I still enjoy going on ventures, but it's time to start focusing on other things. And that's what I'm going to be doing. For one thing, I've got 3 little boys who all want to be YouTubers, including my oldest son, Tom, who's got his own channel, the Outdoor Tom YouTube channel. But I want to spend more time helping him with his channel and preparing him to be an adult, which is going to be in less than 6 years. But I've spent so much time focusing on me and my family and growing my business. It's time to step back and focus on helping other people for a change. And I'm excited to see where that takes me. But all that being said, I have a lot of half-finished videos, including the homestead projects and some travel adventures and even some extreme camping trips I've been planning for the last 6 months. But if I decide to finish those videos, or if I decide to film any other adventures after today, I'll post them at the end of the year, all in one big dump. But no matter what, this is going to be my last video for a while. Now, I know there's some of you out there who've gotten more than just entertainment from my videos. If you feel my videos have helped you in some way, then go out and find someone you can help. I'll see you guys later.
What do you think of the brain dead woman in Georgia who is kept alive on machines to keep on the pregnancy because of the state anti-abortion law? Based. Women finally being treated like the breeding machines they are. One step closer to my real life fantasy of living in the, is it The Handmaid's Tale? What's that show that everybody talks about that oppresses women? There is a world where I can actually see something like that kind of being like acceptable, but I feel like the feeling I think it would obviously have to be at the behest of the family. Like if you had a daughter or a wife and she was pregnant, but she wasn't going to survive the pregnancy for some reason, but you know, like you have a conversation with her and everybody else and you're like, hey, like, what do you want to do? Like I could see that, but state mandated breeding machines? Don't say The Handmaid's Tale. Don't say The Handmaid's Tale is acceptable. Why is Dan saying he decided not to talk to you after having the dinner with you? You mean Dean? Are we not typing full sentences anymore in chat? That's cool. Okay. Good job. Do you own a 2011? You mean a 1911? What is a 2011? It was the last thing you said, and then you said it could be acceptable. The Handmaid's Tale or whatever? Obviously I'm joking, right? A 2011 Supra. Oh. Okay, sorry. Hold on. No more DGG chat. These guys are typing like they're having a stroke. I'm having a stroke reading this.
Cool.
Dude, I'm never gonna win. I'm never gonna win.
Right. Okay. So why won't you debate Destiny?
Debate Destiny on what?
Destiny wants to debate you on your socio-political views.
Have I even said that? Maybe? Okay.
He challenged you publicly. Didn't you see it?
I think I just wanted to talk about the Z stuff, but
Didn't he ask about like a
Both you and
conversation?
Parker.
I saw that.
Both you and
clip.
Parker. Okay, so you saw it. So why don't you debate him?
So I have contentions with like certain facts that would make it very uncomfortable for me to go on a stream. But like
What are those facts?
I see no point to engage in that conversation with Destiny.
It sounded funny, like
I
because both of you guys.
I don't think that's productive.
Hold on, both of you guys sat down and had dinner with him, but yeah, you don't want to have a debate with him.
And it's
it's so crazy that these guys are supposed to be like the debate bro archetypes, and they're scared. Once I finish, I should be, listen, 1 week. We should be done within a week with Factorio, I think, okay? I need to rebuild my space platform here, and then I need to rebuild my Aquilo base. And then after that, I think I just make my big ship, and then I fly to the Shattered Planet. We're done, right? I think that's basically all that's left in this game. And then we're hitting that politicking ground hard. I'm branding myself world's best debater. That's going to be part of my new branding, okay? I'm tired of all these people using excuses and running away, all right?
I don't think that's productive.
Hold on, both of you guys sat down and had dinner with him, but yeah, you don't want to have a debate with him.
and it's when we had the dinner that I like kind of
Like
separated.
realize
So,
that he's not good.
yeah.
It is. Dude. It is crazy how many overwhelmingly positive real life experiences I have with people who will like relabel these things. I had a friend that was at that dinner too. I'm curious what her accounting would be of this. Like, what it was a fine dinner. It was a lot of fun. We chatted. We talked about their upbringing, their come up, I guess, on their platforms. They both said they watched a lot of my stuff. It's so crazy.
So back
Both
when
of you guys
we were
looked
kinda
up to
newer
him,
in
and now
the
you don't want to
space-
debate him. That's kind of funny.
Nah.
Whoa.
no.
The fact that we sat down with a dinner of him didn't mean that we looked up for him. Looked up to him. The reason, like, I personally got dinner with him, and probably same with Parker, was because we were scoping the space out, and we wanted to better understand and acknowledge the characters of the creators in this space when they're not in front of a crowd. And I think that was an incredibly good
No, you're a
decision to
fan.
make.
Wait, I am so curious. So what, I revealed my character to be this horrible, evil person? I'm so curious. Wait, what are they going to say? What happened at this dinner? Wait, what?
You're a fan.
How are you gonna assume my
Bruh.
intentions when I'm describing my
He
intentions?
said
to
himself
you?
that you guys told him that you were fans.
That's actually not true. He
That's
never
not
said
true.
that.
Oh, so he's lying about you guys being fans.
He never said that.
He did say that.
No, he
I can
didn't.
pull up the clip if you want me to.
Absolutely.
I don't remember if I said that or not. I feel like I try not to say people were fans because it feels like you're being condescending. But I mean, like, they were fans. But I don't mean that in like a condescending way. But I mean, also because they're super young and everything too. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they were like starstruck. Like, they weren't cringe or anything. But I mean, like, they watched my stuff when they were growing up. They seemed to enjoy it quite a bit, and then it inspired them to do content like this, which is, I mean, if that's not a fan, I don't know what it is. But there's nothing. It's not like a bad thing. But
Absolutely, no, he didn't.
Oh, you want me to pull up the clip then?
Also, like in the past, I could acknowledge that like I've watched people. Right, that's not me saying that like I'm a fan or anything like that. That's like me saying
You
that
said
like I've
both
watched.
you guys are fans and were inspired by him.
No, saying that
Oh, like
we have
inspired
watched,
in debates?
Yeah, like saying that we've watched him in the past and that it's inspired us in terms of debates isn't saying that like we're a fan.
Oh yeah, like early
you gonna pretend that you aren't fans
early debate
because-
com
okay.
years back. Both
Yeah.
Hassan and Destiny
Yeah.
inspired me a shit ton to get into.
Yeah,
debates.
like I've watched all of the debates of the YouTubers like back in the day. I never got like super involved or engaged in these communities, but I definitely watched them.
Parker,
Right,
you were
that
on
was,
a panel with Destiny, actually.
That was in the past and a long time ago. Yeah.
I don't know why you pretend like you weren't cool with Destiny. You were definitely a fan.
No, I wasn't cool with it. We disagreed on a point, and I had no communication with him. What are you talking about?
I'm saying that you liked him.
I was
as a
I was
person.
on
You
I
liked
was
him
on
as a
I was
creator.
on a panel on the Hippie Dippy podcast 2-3 years ago because I went on Jubilee, and it was a panel with a bunch of different people, a bunch of different creators. That's like the only time I engaged in like an online YouTube type of debate.
when we were on a panel with Parker, there are a ton of random people I've been like on panels with who were on like a Prime Kai thing or something. It's possible that I think that's what they said that was. It's possible.
type thing.
Yeah, you can say that, but you were definitely a fan. I mean, you like to pretend in front
See,
of your audience like you don't care about.
You're just assuming intent. Look at that. Once again, like I
I
described.
mean, he said it himself.
I described to
Are you
you.
calling him a liar?
I described to you why I got dinner with a guy, and then you're like, oh no, you're just being dishonest. Yeah, dude, you just want to paint a narrative to be a dick. That's all. I'm being dead ass. Like I got dinner with Destiny because I wanted to better understand the characters of the other creators in this space. Not when
Yeah,
they're
we're gonna
online,
believe
but
that.
also
Say it
in
enough
person.
times, we're gonna believe it.
Exactly, bro. You're coming up here with negative intentions. Disprove it.
I mean, he said himself that you guys.
This fucking.
Well, I'm so curious what he means by that. Like, what character verification did he do with me in person where he realized I had like bad character? I'm so curious. What is that?
Just fucking prove it, bud.
What?
Oh, you want the clip? You want the clip?
What clip is going to disprove what I just said?
What Destiny said about you guys.
Okay, fine. Play it.
I'm
Yeah,
so
di-
confused.
Yeah,
I'm
so
so
you're-
confused.
yeah,
with this shtick.
disprove that I got dinner with Destiny to better understand the character of individuals.
No, I want
in
to
this
prove.
space.
I'm proving that you guys
No,
were
no,
fans.
no. Disprove what I just said.
I'm gonna prove that you guys were fans.
Okay, so you're not
Is that
going to
okay?
disprove what I... So you accept what I just said.
No, I don't know.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
then
no,
why don't
that
you
doesn't
accept
make
it?
sense.
Why don't you accept it?
Because you're denying that you're a fan.
Wait, I literally said that I was inspired by both Destiny and Hasan when I started getting into
so
debates.
you're a fan, right? So you're a fan, right?
No, the
That
claim that I was
doesn't- that's not what a
inspired
fan
by
is.
both Destiny and Hasan when I first started getting into debates
So
is
you
not
weren't- so
equivalent
you're
to the
not a
claim that
fan.
I'm a fan of Destiny. Wait. Do you? I just want to clarify. Do you think the claim that I was inspired by both Destiny and Hasan
Debate
when
mode
first getting into
activated.
debates is equivalent to the claim that I'm therefore a fan of Destiny?
Yes, you were consuming their
Oh,
content.
so you do
like their
think that those
content.
two claims are equivalent?
Yeah, you were consuming his. That's what it entails. You were
Wait,
consuming
you're
his content,
consuming
you liked
our
his
content. You're consuming our content. You like our content. Are you fans?
I'm
of
not
us?
inspired by your content, am I?
Are you
Am I
wait,
inspired by you?
You
No.
can be. You can even be inspired by people you disagree with. You understand that, right? Like,
I've inspired Trump supporters
been-
to stop debating on TikTok Live. Are the Trump supporters that have started debating on TikTok Live that were inspired by the fact that there's some liberal that they hate doing it with a bigger audience? Are they fans of mine?
and also, like, you know that
That's
you know
not what
positions
inspired
and positions and beliefs change over time. You learn more about people over time. Like that's just like the reality of things. Like over years, you learn different things about people, and then given that new information, that you change your mind.
Yeah, Tide. Honestly,
Like I used to be like when I first started TikTok, I used to be a communist. I grew up in a conservative Christian household. I used to be a Trump supporter. I used to watch people on the internet like Charlie Kirk, like Ben Shapiro, right? Like Steven Crowder and all of those insane people that I disagree with now.
Okay, so you're just gonna. It's
Wait,
okay.
wait,
It's
I have a
okay because
question.
you want to pretend for.
Why can't he just have had dinner with you and that's that? Why is it all of a sudden that he wanted to judge your character while he feigns niceties? Because his audience would probably destroy him if he said anything nice about me, because his audience is super, super, super far left.
Wait,
your
wait,
audience,
wait,
I know-
wait,
I know
I got a
Destiny's a
question. I got a
controversial-
question. Is Hasan a fan of Destiny?
He was.
Wait, why? Because they used to work together and were inspired by one another.
Yeah,
forever.
he used to be a fan, but now
Yes.
he's not.
Ah, thank you for the concession.
And he did
Got it,
Hassan
got
sit
it,
down
got
with
it,
dinner with
got
him
it,
last
got it,
year?
got it.
No, but you guys did.
Did Hasan sit down? Did Hasan sit down at dinner with Destiny to better understand and acknowledge his character before eventually separating himself from Destiny? He did more than just sit down at dinner,
No.
bud.
Yeah, they had a disagreement.
Great.
They had a
Thank
disagreement.
you so much for the concession.
At least because
Mr.
Hassan
Van.
is transparent about it, but you guys.
I
aren't. He's
appreciate you for
transparent
being a
about
fan of my
a fan.
content. I've obviously inspired you enough to join the Q and Rage bait.
Do you want to like debate why you voted for Donald Trump, or
I've
are
already
you done with
debated.
that?
We've already gone over it. I've already won.
You
Wait,
won
name
on
one
a
point you
point.
won on.
Oh, he already won. He
Already
said.
won on like the case of the woman being pregnant. Like you guys are just bad at what you do. You guys keep ducking debaters. Andrew Wilson has called you out.
Wait, now
Mary
he's,
Gates keep calling you
he's
out.
making
Destiny
now
has called you
arguing a
out.
point that doesn't
You've only
relate to
had
the thing you won
2
on.
hours sit down
So
with
what
him.
specific point about the case that we brought up did you win on, apparently?
Wait, then also, Ty, now you're being bad faith because earlier you literally admitted verbally and conceded that I'm not running from Andrew Wilson. Now you're saying I am. Which one is it?
Ooh.
Oh, I mean.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just-
look at
When
that.
did you have dinner? I think I asked if they wanted to get something to eat after the Jubilee show that we did. That we did. Wait, they weren't on my show. Why were they there? Oh, because I think they'd done one right before me. And I think I texted them. I don't remember who brought it up, either them or me, that we should get something to eat after, and they agreed.
Bad
I said
faith.
Parker. I said Park was.
No, you
winning.
said
I
you
don't know about
guys.
you. Okay, well I'm saying.
Wait, does
generally,
guys
like, I'm
does
saying
guys
generally.
imply singular or plural?
So look, you just.
No,
being bad
answer my
faith.
question.
You
Does
just,
guys imply
Jesus
singular
look, you're
or
being
Christ.
plural?
pedantic. I'm obviously when I say you guys. I'm just
Semantics
speaking
are
generally.
important. I'm quoting Mr. Andrew Wilson. I thought you were a big fan. Come on, you know that semantics
Wait,
are
when I
important.
say I
if
was
you
a
watch
fan of
him.
Andrew Wilson.
Well, you consumed his
Bro,
content.
holy shit, these conversations.
Yeah, I consume his content. I'm not inspired by his content.
Yeah, you consume his content.
don't
Come
share
on,
the same
come on, buddy.
ideology.
Come on, buddy. So does guys imply singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural. So when you say you guys are running from Andrew Wilson talking to a group of 2 other people, what does that imply?
That implies that it would be both of you guys, but that's not what I was saying. I'm just saying, I'm speaking to you
I
because I know
literally
that
just
you.
quoted from you. I literally quoted you. I literally quoted you. That
Literally,
is not
literally
just what
quoted
said.
you.
That is
Literally
precisely
quoted. Literally,
exactly in
literally.
quotations what you said.
Still literally quoting.
Okay, it's all about what I
Literally
mean. It's not about what I said.
quoting.
Anyways, like I said, I don't know.
Fucking hell, dude. Oh my god. The rage bait. The rage bait. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Go to the phones. Calling from a 406 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Doxing.
Hey, my name is Dakota. I'm calling from Georgia. Yes, sir. You guys mentioned Bozeman, Montana. I was actually a contractor when I lived there, so I have a little bit of insight into the housing market in that town.
Well, can you
just,
tell me?
just to
Can
kind
you,
of
well,
poke
before
holes.
you give me, hold on for 1 second. Can you tell me the mayor of that town, Democrat or Republican?
To be honest, I don't know. I've been gone for almost 3 years now, or just over 2 years, so I can't. But Bozeman is a blue dot in a red state.
Okay. And what was the? It must have been very expensive because of all the environmental regulations.
Sorry, wait, hold on. Side beam.
Some of these ideas are really beautiful, you know, like from a moral standpoint, like the things that Jesus asked you to do, being selfless, being service oriented, you know, caring about the poor and the needy, not just being about your own accumulation of your possessions, recognizing the emptiness in the accumulation of possessions.
Did you see the recent melee drama with from Technicals? You made a cameo for 2 seconds. Nope.
Like, these are beautiful ideas that I subscribe to today. So I think part of my interest is this, like, I want to rescue Jesus from the hands of the people who are using him for evil.
Yeah, because they're pretty out of line. I mean, Jesus says this, doesn't he? You know, there'll be people who come to me saying, "Lord, Lord," and I'll say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And there is an idea that the path is narrow, and it does just seem at times flatly contradictory, the attitudes that people have. And yet, I don't know if it's like a biblical literacy thing or what, but when you see like prosperity preachers, for example, flying around in private jets and things, and you think, I don't know how you can read the Gospels and not have this just jump off the page at you. Have you seen the clip of Donald Trump asked what his favorite Bible verse is? I think this is 2016
I'd
election
rather not
cycle.
get into this
So
specifics.
it's sort of very personal, and they're like, really, anything jump out? She's like, no, I think it's.
Just as a heads up, I don't know who this guy is though, so I'll be careful. Maybe he's not a preacher or whatever else. But if you do like religious stuff, but you avoid politics, don't do religion. You should leave and go do literally anything else. You are a blasphemer. Okay? Religion is worthless if not able to be applied to your real life. There is no point whatsoever for you to be religious, encourage people to be religious, or for you to preach or do anything else if you're not willing to show people how to apply religious principles in their actual life. Just as a heads up. But
I think it's super.
now, maybe that might not be what this guy does, so I'm not necessarily judging him harshly, but if he is, then I am judging him harshly.
So it's sort of very personal, and they're like, really, anything jump out? She's like, no, I think it's too personal. And they say, are you more of a Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy? And he goes, I would say probably equal. Equal.
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, I think by the next time he's asked, you know, what your favorite Bible verse is, he's like, oh, it's 2 Corinthians 1:7.
Right,
like
right.
he's
Yeah.
he's got the.
Well,
answer.
this is interesting.
People are saying that's ret and like, okay, I don't know what that is, but
About that. Because I want to give, like, first of all, there are many Christians who are just like buying this idea that like he's actually that Trump's actually a Christian, right? That is happening. But I will give, there's a lot of Christians, I'll give them credit. They don't for a second. They don't for a second buy that he's a Christian. They know that he's using the Christians for his ends. But, and I know many people like this, but they believe that the things that he's a crude tool
Yes.
to basically accomplish things that are more consistent with the Christian worldview.
Yes.
And
you absolutely know who he is. Have we watched this on stream before? Good Mythical Morning with Rhett and Link. I feel like I've never seen this in my life. They did sketch comedy 20 years ago. Okay.
So it's a little more nuanced, and so I understand that that's what they think, but then I'm like,
have you gone over recent court memes? No, I don't know if there's any point in going over any of this stuff anymore. I hope there are sanctions for this case when this is over. They don't understand the rules of civil procedure, and they don't understand I guess anything having to do with I can't explain it. I'm not sure. They keep trying to cite these local rules for how they want to file things under seal, like local rule 5.4b1. If you read these the local rules, or if you know anything about civil procedure, you can't file stuff under seal and keep it from the defense. You just can't do that. I don't know why they keep trying to make this argument that they can. You can't do this. You're not allowed to do this. Defendant's opposition completely ignores the substantive basis for the motion. 1, good cause for sealing the identities is established since the declarations contain sensitive and private intimate details. But you yourself said that the details are there, you just don't have the names. So which part matters? I have to know who a witness is. I have to know who somebody who's purporting to support the plaintiff is. I have to know this. I have a right to know this. And 2, public disclosure of the identities of these witnesses would expose the witnesses to harassment, embarrassment, possible harm, and retaliation. If this is true, you've undermined your own motion by publicly releasing the screen name of at least one of the people involved, which allows people to identify who she is. And that's already happened. But their own filings are sloppy. So they've already undermined this. And also, if you want to publicly file something under seal, meaning to keep it from the public, fine, but you still have to make that available to us. None of the rules allow you to file something that the defense doesn't know who the person is. Well, there might be, I'm not going to say none of the rules, but there might be some really exceptional rule. I know with child sex cases, I think there are really special rules that can apply to accusers or victims to keep their stuff sealed. But outside of an extraordinary case like that, you just can't do that. They also keep bringing up just random stuff. Defendant has publicly threatened physical harm to individuals who have spoken out against him and in support of plaintiff. For Jessica and Queeman and Lav and Mr. Girl, these people aren't part of this case. These people are not involved in this complaint. I don't know why they keep bringing these names up. These people aren't mentioned as witnesses. These people aren't mentioned as parties to the complaint. They're not part of this. So I don't know why they keep blog posting in these motions. They try to bring up this, and again, they undermine themselves. They say that, I used her name, for instance, after they filed the protection order. So 1, no, this was hours before the protection order on my YouTube channel, number 1. Number 2, I edited out, because I went back and I edited out because there was an instance where I used her name, and I edited that out, or August did. Apparently it pops up a second time in the video. Why not just do a meet and confer with us and have us remove it? Why would you sit on this for 2 months if it's so important for you to keep the name protected? Why would you sit on this for 2 months, not communicate that at all with us? And then why would you link the video and the timestamp with the person's name in a public filing when you've already demonstrated that you know how to file under seal? Everything about this is just a joke. I can't, dude. I'm praying. I might buy a Civ Pro book and just start reading because I want to write the fucking summary judgment. I hope there are sanctions for opposing counsel after this. I pray. It's just, it's unhinged how stupid and insane the filings are on this, but. Do the witnesses' names need to be published for you to be able to serve discovery requests to them, even though you might already know who they are? Technically, theoretically, I can try to find out in other ways. There's at least one witness person who's listening. I have no idea who the fuck this person is, but also nothing that on their declaration is relevant to this case at all either. So actually, none of the declarations are relevant to the case except for the one person whose screen name is called out. I don't want to say that. I don't even know what I should or shouldn't say publicly in terms of the name, although they haven't responded to any discovery requests related to this person or the evidence that they are purporting to have. But yeah, it's all super, super, super stupid and goofy, but
nuanced. And so the Christian worldview.
Yes.
And so it's a little more nuanced, and so I understand that that's what they think, but then I'm like, yeah, but okay, let's talk about the things that platform wants to establish that are still very inconsistent with the bulk of the things that Jesus talked about.
Then one wonders how much that is Christian nationalism as a whole, how much of it is really Christian, outside of just being nominally Christian in the way that Trump might be nominally Christian. I mean, the one thing that gives me pause for thought is like when he was nearly assassinated.
Is there a chance that they're just trying to keep this going as long as possible to hurt you financially as much as possible? That is, no, there is no chance of that. That is absolutely what they're doing. Yes, the only purpose right now is to basically just weaponize the civil court system as much as possible to try to cause as much damage to me, reputationally, financially, as much as possible. That's the only purpose of what's happening now. That's, yes, 100%.
He did sort of quite convincingly portray a feeling of
which is whatever. I mean, you have the legal right to do it, I guess. But but I'm hoping, as part of a summary judgment, that I hope that opposing counsel is punished for the behavior, because they've violated like several rules at this point in terms of how they're conducting themselves, and it seems to me that it's willful, but. I don't know what the standards are when it comes to like sanctioning people, or what the standards are when it comes to getting people in trouble for actually fucking around. So who knows?
Convincingly portray.
It's funny how their meet and confer was emailing Andrew like 2 hours before they file and not even making any effort to see if they could resolve it with him. Yeah, they did the meet and confer. They said that we met our obligations for meet and confer. They emailed my lawyer 90 minutes before filing, and they're like, well, it might have been 9 p.m. Florida time. It was 6 p.m. California time, so he actually still should have been awake. And I was like, bro, are you 90 minutes? What? Like, it's not my fault. It's not our fault that you're filing all this shit at the last fucking minute because you're either too busy or don't know what you're doing, or you're too lazy, or you're overworked, or whatever the fuck, or you're doing it pro bono, so you don't want to put any actual time towards it. Like, yeah, it's unhinged. It's crazy.
A feeling of sort of spiritual awakening after that. I mean, he put it in quite uncomfortable terms about like, well, if you look at that, if you look at how close it was, I saw the graphic of how it went just past my head. If you look at that and you're an atheist, you got to start rethinking it. And there is this forgetting of Corey Comparatore, who's the firefighter that the bullet eventually went into and killed.
I like how they get away with that. Nobody seems to question that. Like, God saved me. It's like, did God kill the firefighter? The fuck?
Right.
But I did think if you were nearly assassinated, especially if you've already got this sort of egomania around you.
Is there an ETA for summary judgment? I don't know. Where am I so appropriate? How long does discovery last? Like a month or two? So hopefully in 3 months, I guess, maybe? I don't know.
President of the United States type.
I'm pretty sure. I feel like I read this at one point. I thought I read somewhere that if you can't file stuff, arbitrary bullshit stuff, that's not a real term. You're not allowed to file stuff just so that a case can survive summary judgment. That's like an actual sanctionable or call-outable thing. I don't know if Jen or someone else in my chat, but you're not allowed to, like, if you think a case is going to lose on summary judgment, you can't just file some bullshit to go to trial. That's like a specific thing that's called out somewhere, but I don't know.
Fascinated, especially if you've already got this sort of egomania around you, President of the United States type thing. To have your head turned at the right moment and avoid assassination, I do wonder if maybe that did make him at the very least, like, seriously consider the possibility of divine watching.
Right.
But I don't know, even then, although I want to grant him that possible space for spiritual growth, I don't know if that develops into, like, it's easier for a rich man to...
What does sanction on opposing counsel mean? Like, do the lawyers lose their license? I know they lose their license, but they should have, like, some kind of punishment or reprimand against the opposing counsel, the lawyers, yeah. Because I think they're filing stuff and they're doing stuff that they're not supposed to. I don't even think, for instance, throwing on witnesses, like, after a complaint has been filed that aren't even part of the original complaint. Like, plaintiff stated that a supporter reached out to her and said that the supporter's sister had received the video that is the subject of the complaint like 4 months ago. That's what she claimed to the complaint. That person never materialized. Okay, without that person, the complaint is dismissed because the law wasn't active when she was alleging the original video was transmitted. So they threw that in there. So that makes it survive a motion to dismiss, right? Because now there's a dispute of fact. But now that we're in discovery, we've been through discovery for a bit, that person never materialized. Okay, so that person just wasn't real, I guess. You just put that in your complaint and you didn't have an affidavit or a declarant or anything. You didn't have nothing. So I don't know if that person's even real. And now we've thrown on another random person. But why? Where did this person come from? Like, you didn't get that from me. That wasn't part of my discovery. I didn't have that. So did you have this person all along and you just didn't file it with your original complaint? I'm pretty sure you were supposed to amend the complaint to have her part in there. I don't think you can just keep throwing people on. You're not allowed to do that. You can't just keep adding random witnesses and shit unless, I believe, if it comes up as part of discovery, I think you're allowed, there's a process by which you can file motions or whatever to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, it's all wacky bullshit.
For a camel to pass
I
through
don't
the
know
eye
if
of
we're
a
gonna
needle
get
and
there.
all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But and so yeah, it's like it's a crude tool, as
Right.
you put it. And if you just look at the way that one does wonder. I always thought of doing like skits where you sort of put Jesus in the modern day and see how he would actually react to like the sort of this strange juxtaposition of the Christian attitude you're supposed to have and what Jesus was actually all about. Because some of his teachings I do think are difficult and maybe inapplicable. I had this idea of him like walking through central London or something.
How often do you communicate with the law firm in this case? Probably every other day or something.
And somebody like comes up to him, says, "Sorry, have you got any change?"
Generally, if a motion is filed, they usually will forward it to me and they'll say like, hey, like, can you give me notes on this or whatever? Because I have to give them all the information that I have about a thing that they might file, and then they make official filings from there, basically.
And the disciples would go, "Sorry, mate, we haven't got any change." And he goes, "Brethren, when one is in need, if you do this to the least of these, you do it to me." So it's like, Matthew, grab the purse and give
Right.
them some money. Anyway, as I was saying, and then another person comes up. "Have you got any change, mate?" And they're like, "Oh, we just get it." And he's like, "Because..."
Are you serious? Nobody would have gone up to Jesus and said, "Oi, you got any change, mate?" Are you did you just besmirch my God that way?
And then another person comes up. "Have you got any change, mate?" And they're like, "Oh, we just get it." And he's like, "Because one person is in need, because you've helped one, does that lessen the need to help another? No. Peter, grab your tunic. We're gonna give it to him, And then and people just keep sort of coming up, and at the end,
Wait, hold on. I'm so sorry. Stop, Jen. I see you typing nonsense in my YouTube chat. Not nonsense. I'm so sorry. Proving it's difficult. Destiny has really, really good lawyers, though, and it seems she really doesn't. In federal court, summary judgment can file before discovery is. Okay. I'm killing this meme rumor right now, okay? Because people are doing this thing where it's like, oh, he's got good lawyers and she doesn't. That is true. I do have a really good law firm. However, her mistakes right now, or the mistakes from opposing counsel, are not because they're like bad lawyers in that like they just don't have the resources or whatever to get. They're failing like basic civil procedure stuff. Like they're failing on the basics. And they're acting incredibly vindictive in terms of, at least in my opinion, in terms of how they're persecuting this case. They're being incredibly vindictive, incredibly unprofessional, and they're missing basic civ pro rules. That's not like, oh, it was just they just got outmaneuvered in some advanced strategy by like a crazy, powerful law firm. It was just, it's the honest to God answer is they just don't have a case, and they know that, and they're just flailing. But
and someone comes up, "You got any change?" And Jesus is like, "Sorry, mate, I haven't got any."
Jew Hunter said she got a really good law firm. Yeah, because everybody, when they first covered the case, I was completely doomed and destroyed and dead, and there was no way I'd ever survive. Then everybody said, oh my God, it's an amazing law firm, because they went on the website and they saw that they did like 50 different areas of law. And then they were like, oh my God, they even brought in another lawyer from out of district. Oh, he's gonna get destroyed. And then slowly the cope has changed to, oh, okay, well, he just got a good law firm, or oh, okay, well, he's intimidating all the witnesses somehow, or oh, then so the cope is like changed like over and over and over and over and over again to where, not to bring up my Voldemorts, but I think Kelly was in one of her side discords that they keep saying they're not making, which is really funny because they keep making them and them talking about like, we've got to get rid of the spies or whatever, which is funny to read. Because I'm everywhere again. But now it's like, oh, I don't even care what happens as a result of the case. Like, at least his reputation got harmed. I actually don't care about the outcome at all. It doesn't even matter anymore. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, okay, good one, guys. Nice.
Any change, because I do wonder how directly applicable some of these teachings are to the modern world. And so it's kind of easy to say, Christian nationalism isn't Christian. Jesus would never abide by Trump. But it's difficult to imagine what Jesus would say about the presidency of a transcontinental republic in general, anyway. Right? So I always find it very difficult to make those kinds of claims.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that I think this is, back to the idea of like, why is it so fascinating?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you really appreciate the context for what this person was operating in,
Yeah.
and you think about that for every scripture, the idea that like, oh, this makes so much more sense, not as some prophecy for current times, but it was a rhtorical exercise for what they were.
You guys have been filing back and forth. Has the court said anything about the disagreements between you two? No, not yet. Although I think we're finally, hopefully, starting to come up on where a judge is going to have to respond to some stuff.
We're dealing with. And it's to me, the Bible actually becomes more meaningful in one sense. Maybe not in like a ultimate.
Why was I linked this?
Ultimate meaning way, but in the way that we actually find and build meaning as humans based on how we interact with our circumstances and how our values interact with our circumstances. Like that's what these biblical writers were doing all along. And suddenly it kind of comes alive to me. Like I always thought, I don't understand these biblical scholars who aren't Christians. Like it was fascinating. You study this for a living and you don't believe it? But now I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Not only because it was so personal to me and foundational to who I am, but because it really is this story of the human struggle to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Context is always key with any kind of art. In a way, the Gospels can be considered they're not art per se, but the sort of artistic elements, the beauty, the truth, the poetry, the meaning that jumps out. A lot of that has got to do with contextualizing a piece of art. Like so much of it has got to do with that. That's something I clocked when you know the book Ways of Seeing by John Berger, or is it Berger? I don't know how to say it.
I haven't read it.
But he's got this TV show as well that he did, and one of the things he does is he shows this picture. He said, just look at this picture and see what you think about it, and then turn the page. And you turn over the page, and it's the same picture, but it's got a caption now. It says, "This is the last painting Van Gogh made before he killed himself." It's like, how has that changed the way that you interact with this painting? And some people want to say it kind of shouldn't. No, the art should stand for itself, but it clearly does. Context plays a massive, massive part. And when you consider the first century Jewish context in which Jesus is working, so many of his claims are transformed. And this is something Christians always want to do when it comes to things like his claims to divinity and stuff. It's like, no, you have to understand, to a Jew at the time, this would have been a really significant thing to say. Claiming to be the Lord of the Sabbath would have been huge. Invoking the I am statement would have been absolutely massive. But I think we do need to do that sort of writ large, and maybe some of the good stuff needs to be contextualized.
Did your theory of mind into the nature of people further develop due to the absurdity of the court case? A little bit, but it's stuff that I'd mainly learned already over 2024, I think. Again, a lot of this is just from stuff that happened in 2022, 2023, so. I don't know if you can say, but what have your lawyers said about the other counsel's actions? Have they talked about it? I'd like to be a little careful about what I say about my conversations with my lawyers, because technically that's like privileged, meaning the opposing counsel can't touch it unless I bring it up publicly. But like I'll say, like in a very general sense, yeah, like I'm asking, I'm also checking with friends and stuff too, because like I said, despite what people think about me, I'm always like super nervous about like, am I way in over my, not in over my head, but like, am I way too confident in this particular area, or like, am I missing something really obvious? But the overwhelming majority of everybody that I've spoken to seems to be like, yeah, opposing counsel is being incredibly fucking like crazy on this. So, and that seems to be the case, but who knows? We'll see. Seeing the judge talk about the TRO was like provided me a great deal of relief because I was worried for that TRO hearing, where I was like, oh God, fuck. Maybe there is actually something I'm super misunderstanding about all of this, and that TRO is going to get granted, and I'm like just totally not understanding something. But seeing her rake them over the coals, I think was like, okay, all right, not super crazy.
As well as the bad stuff. Yeah. They're willing to jump on it. Like if you say, what about what the Bible said? What about when Paul's talking about women or slavery in the Old Testament? It's like, oh, it's context. Like that doesn't apply today. It's like totally different. You got to understand there's the cult of Artemis, and women were getting power that they shouldn't have, and they were bond servants. Okay, but with a lot of the rest of the stuff, it's just quite flatly like, the Bible gives us a guide as how to live today. It's eternal truth. Like, what do you mean? You need to reinterpret it. What are you talking about? And I just kind of think we should look for a bit more consistency on that front, maybe. If you enjoyed that clip, you can watch the full conversation with Rhett McLaughlin by clicking the link that's on your screen. To support the show and get early ad-free access to episodes, subscribe to my Substack at alexoconnor.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay. Odds on you getting any of your costs back? I have no idea. We'll see. That's impossible to predict. I think they would have to really, 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 really fuck up for that. Okay, what was the cope on this?
Yeah, you'd be surprised to learn that in...
Will you read their response, do you think? The last thing? It's just more of the same. It's just more of the same, like, slop. Lawyer slop. Comes now plaintiff Jane Doe and bind through undersigned counsel and files a reply to defendant Stephen Bunnell's opposition, a motion to file declarations under seal. Plaintiff's motion for leave to file declarations under seal seeks to have the unredacted declarations of 3 witnesses filed under seal in order to protect their identities. Pursuant to Local Rule 54B1, plaintiff attached the redacted versions of the 3 declarations to her simultaneously filed reply to the opposition for the motion. The portions of declarations that are redacted are only those that would serve to identify the witnesses. The substantive content is not redacted. Defendant Bonnell opposes the motion on 3 purported grounds. 1, plaintiff's failure to meet and confer. They gave us 90 minutes, number 1. Number 2, plaintiff's refusal to identify the names of the declarants. They won't identify them to us. You're not allowed to do that. And 3, the rule upon which plaintiff relies is not applicable. For the reasons set forth below, defendant's arguments are unavailing. Furthermore, it bears noting that defendant fails to address the merits of the motion and the critical need to have the identity of these declarants protected. Okay. Meet and confer. Plaintiff did not fail to meet and confer. Plaintiff made efforts to meet and confer, but was unable to obtain defendant's position prior to the deadline for filing. Plaintiff then continued with her efforts to confer with defendant and resolve the issues raised, but plaintiff's efforts proved fruitless. So remember, it was 90 minutes. They gave my lawyer 90 minutes to respond to this motion on like a Friday night, okay, before they filed, I think. I don't know if it was a Friday night, but it was like, yeah, it was at night. I was like, okay. Plaintiff then continued efforts. Plaintiff complied with both the letter and spirit of Local Rule 71A2. Moreover, it is apparent that defendant's opposition that he was completely unwilling to reach any reasonable resolution of the issue. The only reasonable resolution, I guess, is for them to have secret witnesses that come forth that are fully redacted that we never get to know who they are, I guess. Okay. Thus, defendant's first ground for denying leave to file under seal is without basis in law or fact. Okay. Plaintiff's refusal to identify the names. Defendant's second purported ground for denying the motion is also without merit. Plaintiff's refusal to identify the names of the declarants prior to the court's ruling on the motion is not a reason to deny the motion. Rather, it is merely a nonsensical demand by defendant. The precise purpose of the motion is to protect the identities of the declarants. Wrong! This is not true. I don't know why they can write this. The purpose of the motion to file under seal is to protect the identities of the declarants from the public. Filing under seal means that you protect it from the public, not from the defense. I don't know why they keep saying things in their motions that are wrong. This is just not true. These declarations contain highly sensitive, private, and confidential information regarding the non-consensual distribution of sexually explicit materials and related communications involving the witnesses, plaintiff, and other individuals. Not of the witnesses. The witnesses are not parties to the case insofar as they are, insofar as they're plaintiffs. These are just supposed to be in support of the complaint. I don't know why you would bring up anything related to anything of them in any of their declarations. It seems improper. It seems like you're exposing them to more unwanted harassment or risk or whatever than they even should be. It has nothing to do with the complaint. Defendant's insistence that he be prematurely provided with the names of the declarants prior to the court's ruling on the motion would defeat the very purpose of the motion. Again, the purpose of filing under seal is not to keep the names hidden from opposition. The purpose of filing under seal is to keep the names out of the public. I don't know why they keep saying this. I don't understand. They just don't it's just crazy. Local Rule 54B1 is the only applicable rule. If you read local rules of civil procedure for the state of Florida, nothing here has anything to do with keeping names hidden from the defense. In a case that is not otherwise sealed in its entirety, as permitted or required by federal law, file and serve electronically via CM/ECF a motion to file under seal that sets forth the factual and legal basis for departing from the policy. So you can have an entire case filed under seal if you file it initially like that, but this one is not like that. Without a technical look, the proposed sealed material shall not be filed unless the court grants the motion to file under seal. The motion to file under seal shall specify the proposed duration of the requested sealing. The motion to file, this is just how to file something under seal. That's all this rule is for. It has nothing to do with filing something under seal. Does not mean that you're hiding it. You don't hide it from the defense. That's not how this works. I don't know why they cite this. There's nothing in the rules of civil procedure that allow you to hide things from the defense. There's no local civil procedure rule for Florida. There is no federal civil procedure rule that I'm aware of. Somebody can point it out to me. They haven't cited it. Local Rule 54B1 provides in relevant part, if prior to the issuance of a ruling on the motion to file under seal, the moving party elects or is required to publicly file a pleading, motion, memorandum, or other document that attaches or reveals the content of the proposed sealed material, then the moving party must redact from the public filing all content that is the subject of the motion to file under seal. Now for this, I don't know if you're supposed to redact the entire declaration or just the stuff that you want hidden. I feel like you're supposed to redact all of it, meaning I don't think that they were allowed to, because usually I believe when you file something under seal, the entire declaration, the entire thing is under seal. So I don't know if they were even allowed. I don't know the answer to this, and I don't have any law school friends who know the answer to this. I didn't ask my lawyer. I should have. I don't know if you're allowed to just redact a couple parts of it and file the rest. The way that I read this is you shouldn't file anything, or the whole thing should be redacted, because this is saying if prior to the issuance of a ruling on the motion to file under seal, so we don't have a ruling from the court yet, the moving party, the party filing the motion, elects or is required to publicly file a pleading, motion, memorandum, or other document that attaches or reveals the content of the proposed sealed material. So the declaration that they're filing, they've redacted something that they want to file under seal, then the moving party must redact from the public filing all content that is the subject of the motion to file under seal. So I feel like the entire thing shouldn't have been filed publicly like that without the whole thing being redacted. That's how I read this. I could be reading it incorrectly, though. I don't know. I don't have any other examples to draw from here. And they don't cite any cases that I can see, so. Thus, the rule specifically allows the filer to publicly file a redacted version of the document, if feasible, and simultaneously submit a motion to file under seal the unredacted version. Okay, I don't know if that is the case, if this says that, because it says you have to redact all content that is the subject of the motion, but I don't know. This is like, I don't know. I'm not super confident in my reading there because I just don't know. But also, again, this has nothing to do with hiding it from us. This has nothing to do with hiding it from us. The only thing I can think of is if there is no enforcement mechanism, if you were to leak the names before a motion to seal is granted, after it's granted, then you'd be legally bound not to disclose. Well, no, I can't leak stuff that when they've said that they are proposing to file something under seal. If they make that known to us and they say that we're going to try to file a seal for this, and I leak the names beforehand, I would be in trouble for that. I'm pretty sure that they could file to get remedies from the court if I were to engage in that behavior. Defendant's reliance on local rule 54F1A is misplaced. This rule is not applicable to redacted filings accompanied by a sealing motion. The only applicable rule in this instance is 53B1, which does not require disclosure prior to the court's ruling on motion. Thus, defendant's third and last the critical need to protect the identities of the witnesses. Defendant's opposition completely ignores the substantive basis for the motion. 1. Good cause for sealing the identities is established since the declarations contain sensitive and private intimate details. Why? 1, those details aren't even relevant to the cases, so I don't know why you're even including those, which is bizarre, okay? Number 1. Number 2, public disclosure of the identities of these witnesses would expose the witnesses to harassment, embarrassment, possible harm, and retaliation. Then why did you include one of their screen names? Number 1. And number 2, we're not talking about public disclosure, we're talking about private disclosure to me. I'm allowed to know who's accusing me or who's claiming to be a witness on things. As set forth in Exhibit 3 to the defendant's opposition, defendant has publicly threatened physical harm to individuals that have spoken out against him and in support of plaintiff for Jistigal and Queeman. I'd kill them if I'd show up at their fucking house and do it. I do want somebody to kill Jistigal, Lav, Mystical, or Queeman. All those people can go die. None of these people are parties to this case. You can also cite a bunch of crazy shit I've said about Trump or the firefighter or whatever else. These people have nothing to do with this case. I don't know if we're just playing random quotations from stream to throw into our court motions, but they're not relevant parties here. Defendant regularly streams on his YouTube channel the details of his case, including confidential details from meet and converse held between counsel. I haven't revealed anything confidential, and I'm allowed to go over the public filings. This is a public case. He wanted to file this publicly, and now I can read the public filings. I have every right to do that. There's a reason why these are public filings. It's a public court case. I haven't revealed anything that I'm not supposed to under seal. I haven't revealed anything that has been redacted. After the reply motions were filed, he streamed about the filings, showing them on his screen. Yeah, they're public filings! Destiny, yeah, and it establishes a pattern of behavior? No, it doesn't. That's not character evidence that's allowed in court. You can't just show random things just because I might be willing to talk. I talk shit about a ton of people or make threats or whatever, say there's a bunch of people that should die. That doesn't mean that I would necessarily do that to somebody who's the subject of a court case. This is exactly why this type of character evidence isn't allowed in court. You can't just have, you can't just say like, oh, well, he said like these unhinged things to his siblings before, so I think that's why he would kill me if he had it. It's like, no, what the fuck? After the reply and the motion were filed, he streamed about the filings, showing them on his screen, reading excerpts aloud, and providing vitriolic and defamatory commentary. I'm allowed to talk about their public filings. I agree that they aren't right, but they're trying to do that. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, they're trying to, yeah. This video has been viewed 115,803 times to date. In it, defendant accuses plaintiff of extorting and blackmailing him, of insane lies, of a total lie. Defendant yes! I'm allowed to have an opinion about my court case. No shit. Defendant accuses witness Abby MC. Nice. Thanks for keeping her identity redacted, by the way. Thanks for keeping all of that private and under seal as you continue to publish witnesses' names that you say that I'm harassing and intimidating. I don't know why you would continue to publish their screen names publicly, but okay. Of lying and perjury. He refers to the undersigned counsel as disgusting fucks. Oh, that's them. Nice. I am. Yes. Include this in your next I look forward to being in your next court filing. That's right. I think you are. And repeatedly accuses the undersigned counsel of grabbing random people to perjure themselves. I do. Show me your next filing. I'm here. Thumbs up. Link me. Put a screenshot. Apparently, all of this commentary is approved by defendant's counsel. I pass everything that I publish by my lawyers first. I don't talk to my lawyers about every single thing I say on stream. The thing that I conferred with them the most on was on my the writing the mini fest or whatever the fuck I did to see what is okay or what's not okay. And then I've like asked them generally, like, I'm allowed to talk about my public filings on stream or whatever, right? It's not like I write down every single statement that I say and then I give it to my lawyers and it's like, can I call the opposing counsel disgusting fucks? And my lawyers are like, yes, call them disgusting fucks. But the opposition counsel here is desperate to attack my law firm as well. They're desperate to attack my representation as well. Furthermore, despite the protective order entered by this court to protect plaintiff Jane Doe's identity, defendant publicly disclosed plaintiff Jane Doe's legal name on his social media platform. So one, this was before the seal or whatever on identity was approved by the court. Two, once the court granted that motion, I removed her name from the video. 3, apparently I say her first name a second time in this video. I was unaware of that. But if the plaintiff's name is so concerning to you, why would you not email us and say, hey, your client said the person's name before that motion was granted. They said the person's name in this YouTube video. Can you edit that out, please? Because we want to be protective of our client's name. Why wouldn't you make us aware of that? Why would you hold on to this for 2 months and then publish it publicly in a filing instead of filing it under seal and not confer with us at all to remove it? Do you not care at all about the name being private? Is it all just for show? Like, it's just wild. The behavior is wild here. This video has been viewed over 130,000 times. In the same video, defendant posts plaintiff's private messages to him about her emotional distress and suicidal thoughts due to his non-essential sharing of the video and then mocks and ridicules her. She already made a public Substack about me. Yes, plaintiff already made a super public Substack about me. Other people have already filed videos about this, or not filed, I'm sorry, public videos about this. Of course I'm going to talk about it. You've already publicly called me out. No shit, I'm going to respond publicly. He then tells his 183,000 subscribers, lowballing me, please, that plaintiff's emotional distress is contrived solely for the purpose of extorting him. None of this has any, I'm sorry, but none of this has anything to do with you seeking any sort of protective order whatsoever. Again, I'm allowed to have opinions on my case. And even if your protective order is granted, I can still have all of these opinions about my case, and I can still say them publicly. Unless you're trying to seek a gag order, or you're trying to seek some incredibly extensive, I think you might be able to get a really extensive protective order that prohibits me from talking about it all publicly. Unless you're going after that, then fuck you. I can talk about it and say whatever the fuck I want. It is readily apparent that the 3 declarants, Abby MC and witnesses A and B, need the court to seal their identities in order to protect them from public intimidation, retaliation, and psychological harm relentlessly perpetrated by defendant. This doesn't make sense. If you think that I'm going to harass them, then you're not looking to file these under seal. You're looking to keep these hidden from me, which you're not allowed to do, number 1. And number 2, your motion to file to seal something doesn't keep it private from me. That's not even what this does. You're just not even. Further relief may be required to give defendants continued efforts. Further relief may be required given defendants continued efforts to dox and intimidate both the plaintiff and the witnesses in this matter. What? What, by serving subpoenas or by serving discovery requests? I have not published any information about any of these people publicly that are the subject matter of the complaint or that are witnesses or that are attached to the complaint. I don't even know what the fuck this means or refers to. What? But anyway. Yeah, it's all of this is like, this is literally lawyer slop is what we've got here. What is the correct response that a lawyer should do if they are worried about them being harassed? I mean, I guess it depends on the level of harassment you're worried about. Like, if you think somebody's going to show up and kill you, then you should like call the cops or something. In my personal opinion, maybe I'm a little sociopathic, I guess. I don't know. In my personal opinion, you want the plaintiff to harass you. That's like a dream scenario, because if your case actually gets to trial, then now you're looking at big secondary damages. So the statutory cap on damages the plaintiff can get from me, assuming it goes to trial, assuming she wins, and assuming she's given the max compensatory award, is $150,000. But for tort, the jury could levy secondary damages onto you. And if the jury is watching the trial, and if during the trial they say, hey, the defense literally tried to dox me publicly. He was harassing me publicly. He posted my information. He was contacting my friends and family. He was doing all these horrible things. A jury might look at that and go, you know what? This motherfucker, this guy was fucking around. And you know what? We're going to award plaintiff more in this case. We think plaintiff is entitled to more damages here because she suffered a great deal of emotional harm and everything else that was furthered as a result of this case. So in those cases, I would imagine it would benefit you when it comes to getting secondary damages awarded to you. But anyway, isn't that what they were trying to set up? They were claiming you were harassing them, but they were. I don't know I don't know. I still don't think the complaint will survive summary judgment, but who knows? We'll see.
In that part of the country, there's not a lot of environmental regulations. Yeah, I know. And there's plenty of space, and in fact, there's a lot being built, and I actually got priced out of the housing market, so that's why I left. So,
it's almost like supply and demand doesn't fix everything.
If you make more houses, they have to get cheaper. Read the court's local rules to show everyone why you think that they cannot keep the identities away from you, but only the public. Here's a link to the Southern District that they cite. Yeah, I went through some of them on stream, or I think I read the paragraph that they're citing. Nothing. I control F yesterday. I control F opposing. I controlled F available. I looked through all of this. I can't find anything in here. The only local rule that I found, but again, the joke in law school is that civil procedure is like the hardest class because there are so many different rules. And I've heard people say that like you don't even really learn Civ Pro until you actually start practicing civil procedure, and then you learn the rules as you do it because there's just so many. So I'm being honest, there could be something that I'm just completely missing. But when I went through, the only thing that I could find that was remotely relevant to anything. But I also feel like I want to be careful when I say this because I don't like the word common sense normally. But hold on, I'm looking at the email I sent last night. When I went through this, and I've not read all the fucking local rules for Super in Florida, okay? Assuming that's what these are all for. 16.16i. If new evidence or witnesses are discovered after the pretrial conference, the party desiring their use shall immediately furnish complete details thereof and the reason for late discovery to the court and to opposing counsel. Use may be allowed by the court in furtherance of the ends of justice. This is for like newly discovered evidence or witnesses. I don't know if that would apply to the new witness that they threw onto this, but I mean, I don't know if there's other more general rules, but I know as a matter of common sense, I hate to say that, but I know this is true. I'll give all my money away if it's not. In the United States of America, you have a right to confront your accuser, and the people have to make known to you like who they are and who witnesses are. Those can't be anonymous. But it's common sense, right? Like, imagine I say, I know that you murdered John. And it's like, how do you know that? Because witness A, B, C, and D all said that you did it. They said they saw you do it. And it's like, what? Well, who are they? I'm not going to tell you. You might go kill them too. Oh, well, fuck me, I guess. I don't know. Do you think the Jane Doe thing will be a problem? What do you mean a problem? I mean, reputationally, obviously, it's already been a problem. But I mean, I don't anticipate, like I said, I don't anticipate this surviving the summary judgment. Still. Wait, hold on one sec. What? Yo, Destiny, dynamics inquiry. What posture to have when dealing with partners that dislike their body? E.g. chest size, do we overlook, manipulate them, it's get to dat, it feels they're jealous or self-confident. Did this guy just have a stroke? Why are you guys typing like this to me today? Stop! You guys are trying to give me schizophrenia. Stop.
It's red versus blue.
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously they need more
Yeah,
supply, but the idea that it's necessarily the cost of building is a function of or can be diminished by getting rid of protections of regulations for people isn't necessarily the enough of a panacea to build an entire movement on.
Good one.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Ezra seemed to be dodging the point, and I've seen it firsthand where it's kind of capital that runs the show up there. Big money interests that come in and buy up all the land. So no people that have lived there their whole life can't afford to buy a home.
Yes, big money.
Big money, you say? Interesting. I find that hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's so epic how much he's
appreciate the call.
fucking. It's so epic how much he's fucking
Yep, that's
owning
Thank
Ezra
you.
Klein here. He's
I
owning
know so
him.
many people that there's like jobs in Montana working in the recreation stuff like ski slopes and lodges and that sort of stuff. Often you have to live in like housing your boss provides.
On the resorts.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, this is largely, it seems to me, a
On-
Yep, that's the best.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
I know so many people that there's like jobs in Montana working in the recreation stuff like ski slopes and lodges and that sort of stuff. Often you have to live in like housing your boss provides.
On the resorts.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wait, is that bad? I've known people that have worked in ski resorts. I thought the reason why you normally live in that place is because usually they end up owning like a ton of the land that the ski resort is on. And so if you didn't live on the actual land that the owners have for the ski resort, you'd have to like drive in from far away, which can suck shit. Is that like a bad thing?
this is largely, it seems to me, a story of wealth inequality. And, you know, I think largely, and there's no doubt, I'm sure, that there are regulations that make it difficult for people to build, and those are no doubt weaponized by people with lawyers and have the money to weaponize them. But getting rid of them is not going to, all you're doing is taking a tool off the table, not the will to stop those things if they want to. Right. And if it involves like local legislation or whatnot, like there is no, I think there is no sort of broad-based movement that can be built around pinpointing which regulations are inhibiting things. And, you know, we've got a bunch of emails regarding my talk with Ezra. And I mean, you know, clearly he's done some reporting on this. The real issue I had with his book was less about the specifics of what was inhibiting the high-speed rail in California or the building costs in San Francisco, but rather as a movement, as they refer to it, or as Derek Thompson said. Yeah, an agenda, but also one that they see as being an internecine.
This video lasts 48 minutes. What could they possibly talk about here for 48 minutes? Oh my God.
Fight amongst Democrats, as if one is to come out ahead, rather than this being sort of like a small bore set of fixes, and also as something that you can run as a political agenda. I mean, people are putting hundreds of millions of dollars behind supposedly the abundance agenda, and outside of some narrow housing fixes in blue states, it's unclear to me what it is exactly that what exactly is this political message. But
I think it's really gross. I really get the feeling that they're trying super hard here to say that abundance is being backed by big donors or something. Like, that is absolutely the connotation I think that's given here. This is really weird or gross, but whatever, dude.
I sent emails.
Yeah.
We got emails from people who worked on the high-speed train debacle in California. And the original sin, someone pointed me to this, where is it?
Wasn't moneyed interest behind killing that?
Well, certainly, but the big original sin was the idea of how ambitious it was. Yeah. It instead of going between just LA and San Francisco, it had to stop through close to a half a dozen other small cities. And apparently the first company that was brought in that did the high-speed rail in France said, you can't do it this way. And now it's possible that environmental groups somehow said, you've got to go through these secondary cities when you build this train. It's possible that low-income equity people said, you got to go through these, or it's more likely that moneyed interest in these cities said, the only way that we're going to sign off on this and give the political power for this to get built is if you go through these other cities. And that became almost impossible to do. You cannot get from here to there in 6 hours if you are stopping in these different places because of the physical limitations on the train. And you have to make that choice that we're going to go around these cities and this is going to be this, and then maybe.
How do you fight this type of ideology and donors controlling everything? It's always an excuse not to vote and blame faceless people. I mean, it's the same thing that I said before. I read something a long time ago with that concept of like a transcendental idea. You have to point that out to people when they're appealing to stuff like this and make it known what's actually happening, right? The this concept of like a transcendental idea is basically a concept that says that there is something that is basically larger than life, larger than existence, larger than everything, that is secretly in control of every single thing that's happening. And there is absolutely no way for you to ever confront that thing, because the thing itself is all encompassing and all controlling for everything. Meaning that even when you think you have evidence against the thing, you don't actually have evidence against the thing. The evidence against the thing actually becomes evidence for the thing itself every single time. So for instance, the Epstein stuff, Epstein files, right? Well, why is it that, like when Epstein died in prison, what happened? Well, he was definitely murdered. Okay, well, here's an FBI, or not an FBI, here's a prisons report that shows that all the prisons were fucked for a long time. Well, of course, the prisons report is going to say that. That's because the deep state controls the prisons report. Oh, okay. Well, here's the thing where the cops themselves testified. Of course, the cops themselves testified to that. They were threatened by the deep state. But what about the court that ruled on it? Well, the judge is part of the deep state. Okay. Why do we know anything about this at all, though? Like, if the deep state was this in control of literally everything, why didn't they just make his suicide look like a murder from an inmate? Well, because in this part, the deep state either failed intentionally or it failed because good people were fighting it. There's no way. You can never fight it. You have to make people aware of what's going on, and you have to say, listen, you got to have evidence for this. I'm sorry, like we can't do this anymore. You have to show evidence of the claim that you're making. You can't just keep doing this broad, vague appeal to the donor class or big money or whatever the fuck. We have to actually have a conversation where you are actually like showing evidence for a particular thing. Otherwise, there's just no way, because your argument is always going to be correct. Because if it's not big money and we say, well, look, it's not big money interest, the people support this. Of course the people support it because big money is telling them to support it. How is big money telling them to support it? There's no evidence of that. Well, because big money controls the schools or controls the research firms or controls the government or it's just, I don't know.
We will backfill this stuff. But the problem is because we have so little infrastructure like this in this country, that a project like this ends up getting larded up and becomes top heavy in terms of what its agenda is. And downstream from that is maybe as you are trying to hit these multiple cities, you run into more regulations. And
yes, that's a great, and it's I love that saying. Gather Old in a Kick Chat said, Pisco did this when he debated Stein recently. He kept saying too big to rig in response to Stein saying it was sus that Biden won last time. Wait. I can't tell if you're saying the opposite of what I think you're saying or not. Because Republicans were saying that the last election, because I remember saying this, I foolishly believed that with Trump winning the election, conservatives would finally admit, okay, well, our elections aren't rigged, right? Like, at least we can finally say that. But then conservatives were like, no, this just proves even more that the last election was rigged. When it's like, how could they rig the last election, but not this one? And then Republicans say, because this one was too big to rig. And it's like, but this election was smaller than the last one. How could this one be too big to rig, but the last one wasn't too big to rig? Wait, what?
more veto points, as it were. But the original point was the original sin was how ambitious of to have multiple stops on this rather than make it high speed from one location to another. And
right. And it's also, I think, look, I don't know the specifics of that case, but I think there's also just a difference in terms of what we even think the problem is. Like, I think the left-wing viewpoint is that housing is overly commodified, which empowers gouging, which is what we're seeing.
What does that mean? Do they ever actually say what they mean when they say that? Overly commodified. Do we get a definition of that? Like, are you saying that all houses should just be given to us by the government and there should be no buying and selling by citizens? Or what does that mean?
Seeing now, rent has never been higher. Yeah, there is a supply side problem too. But
that is contributed to by the people who own that because they're not wanting to see a whole bunch of affordable public housing come up because it hurts their ability to gouge more, like you said.
In cities, there should be a vacancy tax. Yeah.
The question is ultimately becomes for that.
I want to say, can somebody find this? So I'm not like just making this up because maybe I am. But I thought in Vancouver, I thought that they tried a vacancy tax because all the citizens in Vancouver were also like bought into this idea of, oh my God, like all these wealthy Chinese people are just fucking buying homes and sitting on them. I think they tried a vacancy tax. And by the end of it, I think the idea was the vacancy tax made like 42 units available or like 120 more units. It was like nothing. It didn't do anything. Again, it's just, it plays into this weird myth that people buy real estate and then they just sit on it and they do nothing with it because they make money somehow that way.
It's like what inhibits on the supply side? What inhibits the government from doing it? And the story that Ezra has is that it is overly cumbersome regulation that either environmental regulation or things like on the government side, you have to use union workers or you have to have equity. Now, they compare, and people also sent me this stuff. They compare San Francisco to Houston. Apparently, a lot of buildings back before Hurricane Harvey in houses in Houston were found to be built on floodplains. Now,
does that mean there weren't vacancies or that people just ate the tax? There just aren't that many vacancies. In super high demand housing markets, people rent that shit out and people buy that shit because it's... people want the money for it.
They have tightened up those regulations since then, although those houses are still there. They don't know whether are they in a 100-year flood zone or a 500-year flood zone. Apparently they're still figuring that out. But this, I would imagine in each situation, there are different things that contributed to whether it's, hurting housing in San Francisco. But if you go up...
Oh my God, I wasn't making this up. Thank you so much. In the experience of Vancouver, BC, if the experience of Vancouver, BC is any guide, the actual impact of a vacancy tax would be modest. Vancouver, one of the most expensive cities in North America, enacted an empty homes tax in 2017, charging 1% of the value of any home left unoccupied for the majority of the year. A vacant home worth $1.5 million, for example, would pay a $15,000 tax. As a result, the number of vacant homes fell from 1,085 to 922. A 15% decline. Returning 163 homes to the market was undoubtedly beneficial, but of limited impact in a city with nearly 310,000 housing units. Even if the tax returned all vacant units to the market, this would grow the city's available housing stock by just 0.35%. Further, it's likely that most of the homes will be unaffordable to the median buyer or renter of greater importance. But yeah, I don't know, it's just cringe. It did raise money though, I guess, $34 million raised by the program in 2017. But
upstream from that, you realize there's a structural problem that inhibits the supply side, government from providing these things. I mean, not just to mention like, the Faircloth Amendment.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Right.
to ignore that, I mean, I suppose it can be fine on a micro level, but the macro message, which ostensibly it supposedly was presented, nobody's putting $120 million plus at this stage behind local movements in San Francisco, in New York, to roll back legislation. They're putting it behind a broader movement and a messaging campaign that they want the Democrats to win. And I don't think you can win that way as a political matter. And if you can't win that way as a political matter, then you end up with Donald Trump or the Republicans, who also are even far worse than the environmentalists and the equity people are.
And I am not convinced. I am not convinced that an emphasis on supply like this, which if it's being well funded, I trust what you're saying on that front. I mean, of course, developers are going to love this kind of thing when you make housing into a purely supply side problem and you say regulations are the issue, so you can continue.
Stop making enemies of every single participant in the market. It's so fucking cringe. Why would you hate developers? They literally build homes. Stop saying that every single participant in the housing market is evil. It's good. You want developers to be excited to build fucking homes for people in your market. That's good. That's a good thing. Christ.
So you can build more. Some of that is part of the problem. But zoning reform and things like that, like Zoran Mamdani's campaign includes that in his overall housing vision, but he also has a rent freeze. And the tenant protections, the decommodification that is essential to actually systemically change housing forever, so it's not just a method of speculation and passive income for a lot of people, that seems to be absent. And when you pair from the overarching analysis, or at the very least de-emphasized, and then when you pair it in with the money that's behind it and the marketing push, it's only natural to be skeptical, because we've seen this story time and time again. And like, that doesn't mean that I think like Ezra's what he had to say was offensive or anything like that. I just think it's really the wrong emphasis and the wrong time to be making this kind of case.
This is from Benjamin Schneider, who's got a Substack, and tells this story. 2008 high-speed rail plan approved by California voters required the train to travel from San Francisco to LA in no more than 2 hours and 40 minutes. The project, however, promised to serve the downtown of every major, not so major city in between, including Merced, Madera, Fresno, Bakersfield, San Joaquin Valley, high desert city of Palmdale. Those travel time promises, combined with that route map, meant that the California high-speed rail would have to reach speeds of 220 miles per hour. In 2008, only a couple trains in the world reached that speed. And it's still the fastest that any high-speed trains currently travel. And then you have California's mountainous, earthquake-prone topography. You've set yourself up for one of the most difficult engineering projects ever attempted.
Only a few trains in the world go that fast. Shouldn't that mean that our trains go that fast? Why can't the United States have those trains? We're the United States. Why can't we have the fastest train? We have spaceships again. We catch rockets. We catch rockets coming back from outer space. We can't make fast trains? What the fuck? Why not?
And this is in a country that was not used to building it. Now, I will also say, in 2008, the governor of California was a Republican. And then once California would not deviate from its initial route map, SNCF, French National Railroad firm, said, all right, well, we're out of here. This is going to be impossible. There are other ways to approach this, but it was clearly a function of like the incumbent interests in California. And
what? Do we just take that for granted? It was clearly, wait, did he justify that at all with a argument, or are we just assuming that? Okay.
Incumbent interests, broadly speaking, are, be they Democrat or Republican, very often highly influenced by big moneyed power. Now, I imagine there's some power that does.
Oh, okay. We're just going to make that. We're just going to assume that. Even though all these filings are public, even though open secrets exist and we can literally look up everything, we're just going to assume that big money interests are what kept the rail project from working. And also, I don't even know how that would work. Why would big money interests want to prevent the rail project from working? I feel like this would benefit big money interests the most. Imagine if you're a San Francisco firm and you can hire people out of fucking Bakersfield. Bro, you could pay these dudes half the fucking wage that you pay people in San Francisco. Or imagine, I don't know how ordinary this is, but everybody that I know that works for like a big, they don't call them FANG anymore. I don't know what they call them, balls or whatever the fuck. These big tech companies, like when these guys get paid to move, or when these guys have to move for their job, they get paid stipends and they get paid, some month's rent or whatever coverage to move. Imagine if you could move these fuckers to a place that's like 5 times cheaper because there's high-speed rail they can access. I feel like this would help big money interests, no? Well, like, who is stopping? Who are the big money interests that are like, no high-speed rail? Like, in their mind, I feel like I feel like this is just a great example of why it's so bad to have these bad guys, because in their mind, big money interests are literally like evil people, bad guys who are just like, no public transport. I know that they would like that, and I say no because it would make them mad. No big transport, no public transport, no. Like, why? Why would they do that?
Republican, very often, highly influenced by big money power. Now, I imagine there's some power that the environmentalists have as well, but I just don't think it competes.
Well, I mean, you don't think it competes? That's why we're like moving so far forward with climate legislation. I mean, let's be real here. We know that like even solar, wind, etc. Since once you set up a solar panel or when you set up a wind farm, you can't. It's not like oil and gallons. It's not this like fixed. I'm not looking for the right. I can't find the right word right now. But it's not this like commodity that you have to constantly get more of. Once you set up the infrastructure, there's less profit. Well, I mean, you don't think it competes? That's why we're like moving so far forward with climate legislation. I mean, let's be real here. We know that like even solar, wind, etc. Since once you set up a solar panel or when you set up a wind farm, you can't. It's not like oil and gallons. It's not this like fixed. I'm not looking for the right. I can't find the right word right now. But it's not this like commodity that you have to constantly get more of. Once you set up the infrastructure, there's less profit that you can make from it.
Oil markets are something could be wrong, but oil markets are like one of the most competitive markets in the world. Bro, if you want to get involved in like oil and energy, you're competing with fucking OPEC, who can at any point in time like increase the supply of oil and flood the market to try to destroy your fucking business. Also, what do you mean there's no profit in energy? If you have a wind farm or a solar farm, you still sell that energy to customers on the grid, and you still have to maintain the networks and everything. Not to mention the fact that the profit margins theoretically gone out could be even higher because you're competing with natural gas and shit. And theoretically, if this energy is cheaper, you've got an even higher profit margin. I don't know bro, kill me. I don't know.
That's part of the problem. That's part of the reason that we haven't greened our economy is because of that profit incentive. And the one thing I didn't love that he did throughout the interview that I thought was disingenuous was the conflation of degrowthers with left-wing visions for environmentalism and for a more sustainable economy. It felt to me like another way to do neoliberalism, or like old tricks by the Democrats, where he also brought up, he'd say the degrowthers are sounding like Donald Trump. That's what he said at one point with the 2 dolls and the 5 pencils. Like you have to make a sacrifice. He was trying to imply that this was like a horseshoe theory thing, and the center where he's at is the more reasonable approach. And I found that strawmanning of the left-wing arguments about housing and environmentalism to be a bit telling. Because it's difficult for him to attack, or the abundance people to attack the reality, which is what I just said. Like a left-wing campaign right now in New York City also incorporates zoning reform, which is what they say they're in favor of. But all the other stuff, they're either de-emphasizing it or saying it's not the primary problem.
Well, also, they attacked Sunrise Movement for something about some moratorium on solar, when the Sunrise Movement was also very publicly calling for Joe Biden to declare a climate emergency so they could get through some of that red tape.
Right. Somebody sent me that article, too. That was a student Sunrise group in Amherst, Mass. That spoke in front of a town hall meeting. It's possible that this student Sunrise group was the deciding factor in Amherst. It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, why else would you bring it up if it wasn't the determining factor?
I have an alternate book.
And apparently, too, it wasn't quite so straightforward in terms of there were other locations to put this.
Popular knapsack.
There's a book on why we're actually not solving the climate crisis, and I do appreciate that that's one of the sort of things that Ezra says he's motivated by abundance to do, but put this up, Russ. It's The Price is Wrong. We've had Brett Christophers on to talk about private equity, but he also has this great book about why capitalism won't save the planet, and the problem is what Emma pointed to, which is that like the whole point is to get energy cheap by using electricity, like solar and wind and stuff like that, but the problem is if you rely on capitalism, they don't like when energy is cheap because there's no profit in it. So that's why we've...
What? Things being cheap or expensive have nothing to do with the profit on a particular thing. There are things that can be really expensive and there's not a lot of profit there, and there are things that can be really cheap and there is a lot of profit there. Holy fuck, kill me.
Run up against barriers in the last 4 years where it looked like we were making headway, and then all of a sudden something happens, and all of a sudden they can't get profit out of it like they used to.
Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Not to mention, if you want to talk about capitalism and cheap energy, fine, you can say that the energy companies themselves maybe wouldn't like it, and so they're not going to make, I guess, any green energy because it's not cheap. But every single fucking business in the capitalist economy would love access to that energy. Every single business would be like, wait, hold on, we're doing cheap energy here? Yes, because that would help the profit margins of your entire capitalist economy. All of them would love that.
308.
Sorry about that. I was on a pivot. It's very windy. Give me about 5 seconds to get to some shelter.
Kowalski from Nebraska, everybody.
Yeah, what's going on? Are you on a tractor? You're out in a rainstorm, or what's going on?
Cornfield.
It's currently blowing 45 miles an hour, and I'm trying to get some irrigation running.
That's tough.
Is that the wrong time to be doing that?
Yeah, right? Is that water going everywhere?
Well, am I watering the neighbors? Yes, but then the neighbor that's upwind of me is watering mine, so it all works out.
That's so beautiful.
It's community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's our way of combating the Dust Bowl, which a little more of a reality than I wish it were, but that is not why I called. I wanted to discuss a couple things about your, I guess maybe, I wouldn't call it so much a debate as like you're talking to Ezra. So, a few months ago, I believe, Matt, you had been talking a lot on Obama's monetary policy with the quantitative easing, right?
Yeah, I mean, and generally that government action was directed towards banks and not, say, homeowners. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, you see, that is what Ezra is advocating for. In a nutshell, like easing, right? Yeah. Obama's monetary policy with the quantitative easing, right?
Yeah, I mean, and generally that government action was directed towards banks and not, say, homeowners. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, like we're it's just so reductive. It's just so reductive. Like, imagine you have like parents taking care of kids, and imagine the parents are getting 4 hours of sleep a day, and you create like some alternate dimension where they can go and sleep. And you're like, how are we going to help the kids? And it's like, we made another dimension where parents can get extra sleep. They can sleep for a full 8 hours and they can come out. And it's like, so what you're telling me is you're not going to help kids. You're just helping the parents. Good one, dipshit. You're not helping the kids at all. You're just helping parents. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you see, that is what Ezra is advocating for. In a nutshell, like, there's no regulations on it, or there really wasn't much. It was just putting money out there and investments being made where they were made. And if you have something like quantitative easing, people who have money are more likely to borrow money and thus invest that money wherever they see fit. So, without regulations in place, you're just going to end up with the wealthy getting wealthier because money...
Every single system you have in place leads to the wealthy getting wealthier. Welcome to having wealth. The thing about wealth is it tends to beget itself. Yes, but there's no policy that you can make where wealthy people don't tend to get wealthier. That's just the nature of being wealthy. It tends to compound itself. Unsuccessful people tend to become less successful. Successful people tend to capitalize on and continue their success, for better or for worse. Yeah. If you want to redress inequality like that, you have to go to your tax policy. You're never going to design some policy economically that is something that poor people can capitalize on really well, and rich people can't. Like, I don't even know how. It just doesn't even make sense.
Begets money, just as power begets power. So, from like my perspective, when he talks about this like abundance agenda where we have to get rid of regulations, all you're going to end up doing is empowering the same people who still have power. So, like,
I think he would argue, to be fair, I think he would argue that these crises are so urgent that if that's the price you pay for getting more housing, and drawing down the price of housing, then it's worth it. It's just hard
to work.
Well, why wouldn't it work?
Okay, so quantitative easing gave us the cheapest capital for it might have been ever. Like, the cheapest money you could possibly borrow for investments, and it didn't improve housing. I looked this up after your interview with him. Guess how many homes were built in the aughts, like the whole decade of the aughts? How many millions of homes?
What is the aughts? Like 2010s?
I would say...
I'll give you a hint. It's 25 million.
25 million. I would say a lot.
Yeah, the decade prior to that, in the 90s, about 25 million. Before that, 23. Before that, 22. Seems like every decade we built...
Oh, 2000 to 2010. Okay.
Around 25 million homes, 20 to 25. Do you know what it was for the 2010s when the cost of capital was the cheapest it had ever been?
I'd bet that it was a tenth of that.
Less than 6 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Because
do you know...
Wasn't part of the reason why fewer homes might have been built, though, was because of the massive overconsumption of homes in the 2000s? Wasn't that part of like the whole housing crisis? Was a ton of homes were being built because there was a huge demand to build homes, because there was a huge demand to sell mortgages, because there was a huge demand to sell mortgages to investment banks. So is it really that surprising that afterwards there wouldn't be as many homes built in the 2010s?
Which decade we lost the most homes?
Lost?
Like to storms. Yeah.
Oh, I would imagine that same decade. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you actually look, after the 2008 financial crisis, a lot of housing construction companies went out of business. Makes sense. The whole industry had collapsed. What were the 3 places in the United States where the housing market started picking up the fastest first? It was Arizona, Texas, and Florida.
Okay.
Worcester is unique because Worcester is a lot like Lincoln, Nebraska, a mid-sized community that had institutions that could keep borrowing money, and thus it created more economic dynamism that attracted people.
Worcester also missed the entire run-up of the value of real estate, and basically Boston got so big that Worcester ended up being they couldn't build to the east, so they built to the west. But Worcester was up there.
Yeah, a lot of mid-sized towns did all right because, I mean, if you have a university, you have like hospitals or something like that, you have cash that'll keep flowing through no matter what the economy's doing. So you'd have people who can borrow money. That's kind of the issue. Wealth begets wealth. But anyways, the three states that had a lot of housing built was Arizona, Texas, and Florida. Why were these the three locations? Because people like to retire where it's warm.
Yeah.
The people who had the most money financially after the crash were people on the verge of retirement, but they did not sell their homes in the Midwest or in the Northeast. They kept them. Why? Because they would appreciate in value. So the new homes that got built did not end up going to new families. In fact, we've seen the sharpest drop-off possible with the cheapest capital possible. On top of that, California was another large recipient of quantitative easing, but it all went to the tech sector. What did the tech sector do? It just created a bunch of disruptive technology.
How does that work? California was a large recipient of QE. I thought QE was just increasing liquidity in all of your huge banks by buying back, by injecting them with cash in exchange for their treasury bonds. Does that target a state? Is that possible? Were there more of those types of states or banks in California, or maybe that? I don't know if that's true or not. But...
The big one was Airbnb, which also reduced the housing supply. That cheap capital also allowed groups like BlackRock to purchase the existing housing supply, as well as in the state of Texas. Are they building houses? Yes. More than anyone else? Yes. But they were one of the largest recipients of capital investment because of the fracking industry. Every year, like $100 billion got funneled into the state of Texas. Of course, there's going to be more money around to do the housing, not to mention because they have all of this money going into the energy sector, the energy's cheaper there, so manufacturing makes more sense. And because they're getting all of this cheap capital, they don't have to have as high of taxes. So their tax rates go down, which attracts more people. Like, it was just a feedback loop. In California, their big deal was the tech sector. Those guys weren't spreading any of the money around. I mean, yeah, cheap energy is going to spread money around through your economy better than anything else, but it was just like a different dynamic. And to the point of deregulating housing construction, California was already pushing the limits of where they could build housing. Like, there's actually not a lot of land to build there. If you really think about it, a good chunk of...
There's tons of land in California to build. It's just not where people want to live. But, okay.
The South is desert. You don't want to build there. You don't have water.
All of California is desert, and none of Southern California, and none of Southern California has water. There is no water in Los Angeles. There is if you've ever driven north on, I don't remember what it is, you can see, because it's literally in the open, you can see it's not an aquifer, what do you call it? They bring in so much water from the north. Don't they bring in water from like fucking Oregon and Washington? Do people not know this? California, Southern California is a desert. LA is a desert. Definitionally, how much rain does LA get? How much rain LA get annually? The current normal or average seasonal precipitation for the station updated is 14.25 inches based upon a 30-year average for LA. How much rain annually to be a desert? Deserts get about 10 inches of rain per year. LA and all of Southern California is a desert. This place is a desert, and there are millions and millions of people that live here. I don't know if these guys think that the water in LA is like naturally occurring. Well, I used to have a friend that lived up in, is it Santa Maria? And you could drive north and you would see the giant, what is it called? Somebody said aqueduct? It's this thing. You can see it. It's like outside, right? You can see the water. Am I crazy? Am I making this up?
Called the Los Angeles before.
This thing. You can see this if you're driving on one of the interstates going north, right? Like the water in LA is brought in more and more and more, not from just LA, but for all of Southern California, is brought in increasingly more from the north. They have to in order to have water for the area down there.
But did he also just completely forget what happened to California in January? How many homes were lost in LA County due to fires because they were building homes on high elevation points that are difficult to service with utilities? Like, a firestorm wiped out thousands of homes.
The book was probably written before that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I made that point about Houston being significantly more sprawling and there are more opportunities to build there, in addition to the having like an average wealth about half the size of San Francisco. And he told me that there was plenty of room to build in California, but I I don't know California.
I mean, you can build on a hillside if you'd like, but the problem with building on hillsides in California, I had a professor who used to teach at Berkeley here in Nebraska. He was a soils teacher. You build on a hill slope, you have two risks, earthquakes and mudslides. So the insurance is going to be out of this world if you're going to try building there. One of the reasons land is so much cheaper in Texas is because, well, like that person who sent you the email, they build a lot of things in floodplains on the coastal portions of Texas because apparently having federally subsidized flood insurance is a perverse incentive. And I mean, it kind of is. They do build houses in a lot of really stupid areas because of that.
Like first of all, there's a lot of stuff built on hills, the whole Hollywood Hills and all the hills or whatever. And LA has I hate that place. I hate that place. Those houses are gross. The area is gross. I don't know who, and the roads, driving in that area is actual fucking cancer AIDS, okay? But why did I bring this up? Hold on, sorry. Aren't there plenty of places in California, like if you get away from LA and stuff, that aren't just massive hills? Like California, like most of California is like empty space, but I don't know.
But that's going away now, so that's going to make housing more expensive.
I'm from California, and I know the Bay Area pretty well. There is a lot of public transit, which is the other thing you asked about, Sam, but it's mostly concentrated in San Francisco and Oakland and the BART that extends out to these exurbs. All those places are super built out. Like, if you want to live off of public transportation to be able to go into Oakland or San Francisco, like all of the places that are close to where public transportation would be are completely full, except for, as Kowalski's saying, the hillsides, which when you drive through them, and Ezra said, when you drive around, you see all this empty land. It's just, dry brushland.
But it's not just built.
Dude, this is the dumbest show in media. I can't. This is all of California is dry brushland until you develop it. What do these people think that cities just sprawl out of the ground? Do these people think that cities come from the earth? Like, you go to some land and they're like, some guy's like, we could have so many people that live here, and then the guy looks at you from the majority report and they go, you can have people live here? You understand that there are no houses there, right? Like, I don't see a single fucking house. Where's anybody supposed to live, bro? You know there's no electricity there, right? How are they supposed to power their homes, bro? There's no homes. There's no electricity. There's not even fucking streets, dog. How's anybody gonna live there? Yes, you develop it. Bro, this is like, it's the most like taking for granted the world that we live in that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, what the fuck? Like, how can anybody live there? It's all brush. Yeah, no shit. No, nobody's built there yet.
Places that are close to where public transportation would be are completely full, except for, as Kowalski's saying, the hillsides, which when you drive through them, and Ezra said, when you drive around, you see all this empty land. It's just, dry brushland.
But it's not just built, like, to your point, it's not just built up, and it's built up also by wealthy interests. Like, Marin County is one of the wealthiest in the country. Like, they're not this is not a place where you can build public transportation out into because of the topography, and then also because of back to the point, the wealthy interests at play. In that area, wasn't Steph Curry the guy that was like trying to oppose
housing,
public housing being built in his area? I don't know if that was in.
I mean, to be fair, like
area,
the book does make an elegant case that it's not, say, drug addiction or mental health that causes homelessness. It is very clearly inequality, and then it proceeds to not address inequality.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think if you look at it to where it's not just like a money and power thing, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees. I mean, could some well, that's just the thing with regulations, though. Like, the powerful will use any regulation for their own interest. I mean, you can easily use anything for that.
Wow, true. Good job. You figured it out, buddy.
For like, I would say like the incentives to put wind farms in Nebraska, great idea. Like today, very windy. Solar farms, I could see the argument against it just because of how dark it is in the winter months. So I mean, like, that's another reason why Texas is the green energy leader in the United States right now as well. They have plenty of wind. They're a southern state. Makes sense. California, not as windy. Why would they have as many wind turbines? Wouldn't make as much sense. Then the whole, like, this will be the last point, and I'll stop rambling. He made the point that the IRA allowed them to bypass environmental regulations. Am I remembering that correctly?
I can't remember if he said that, but I know that it did in some instances.
Well, I think that is a bit different because the IRA...
How is water in California cheaper than Oregon, Washington, and West Virginia? Because California is better than those shit states. And California has deals to buy their water, okay? Because those people are worse people. Because if you live in Oregon or Washington, you're a weirdo, all right? And you don't deserve the water. California does. That's why, okay?
This is what I liked about it, was government direct investment into something. Like, the goal was to spread wealth around with whatever it was investing money into. I know in the Dakotas, it spent money on some water management around some rivers that always seem to flood whenever there's ice jams, and it spent money on the soybean crush facilities, so we don't have to export soybeans to China for them to crush them. We can crush it ourselves and then send more valuable products out. Nobody fought any of these because, well, why would a local community fight just direct industrial build-out? Like, I doubt Worcester would fight a government program for them to be, like, a manufacturer for, like, power pole transformers. But that's because nobody would fight that. If they were going to be building housing, though, I could see a lot of property owners fighting that, because if you increase the supply of housing,
of course,
the value of housing goes down.
Of course.
So I mean, it's one of those.
Oh, that was a good point. Are we gonna? Why are we saying of course? Are we gonna address that or talk about that with any level of detail, or
things were like, it wasn't that you were getting around environmental regulations. It was powerful people had no point to use.
That was also my point with why it was so easy for Shapiro to say it's a state of emergency to rebuild this bridge, because the bridge already existed. There was no one who was going to really fundamentally complain that you're encroaching upon anything that hadn't already been encroached before. All you had, all the stakeholders associated with it, from the person who had to drive to their crappy job every day across that bridge to, trucking companies and economic activity. I mean, whomever. Everybody associated that was touched by that bridge, all of the stakeholders were in alignment. And so in that moment, you can suspend these regulations, because as a political matter, they're all on board already. There's no new territory you're covering. It's just, we're just going to rebuild this bridge. And so, I mean, I'm sure that there are instances where what they're talking about would be effective. Although, I appreciate the call, Kowalski. Next time he's on, we'll have you come on. Said we'll do a.
Have a good one.
All right, take it easy. Got a email from a developer's critique of abundance. I am a developer with affordable housing nonprofit here in Twin Cities, largely utilizing the low-income housing tax credit program. As a developer, I'm sympathetic to the many regulatory changes Klein and Thompson recommend in the housing sector. No single zoning or building code reform solves the housing crisis. I can attest to that in the aggregate. These changes do make a difference, both market rate developers and affordable developers alike, and result in both more units and a wider variety of housing types. However, I want to focus on the example discussed in the interview regarding the affordable housing project that was required to include specialized air filtration systems due to its proximity to a highway. Incidentally, this was in a book. I didn't, the dichotomy between, or the binary choice between air filtration systems or, in housing next to a bridge or a highway, I should say, or living under the highway was presented in the book. As a developer using the LIHTC, we must apply and compete for a limited pool of tax credits each year with the state housing agency. Because of the scarcity of the tax credits, we got to stand out by including systems like air filtration, or as the case in Minnesota, sustainable energy aspects like rooftop solar, geothermal wells, passive house building. As a result, housing LIHTC produces is not cheap. We're currently approaching $500K a unit in our market, meaning that less units are produced than if preference was given to those who could build housing the cheapest and fastest. If Klein's approach, as I interpret it, was implemented, we could forego the project elements that add cost and time while not directly increasing housing supply. While I have a plethora of issues with the LIHTC program, the fact that it produces high-quality, durable, affordable housing is perhaps its best feature. It ensures, as Sam points out, that society doesn't pay more in the long term to maintain substandard housing, the core issue that killed public housing in the U.S., incidentally, or has to mitigate the negative health and safety outcomes over time. Klein and Thompson generally present this issue as zero-sum. Either we build a lot of housing quickly or cheaply, or we sacrifice supply in favor of meeting goals tangential to getting people housed. My suggestion is simply that we can have both. The only reason why the requirements like air infiltration cost us affordable housing units is, ironically, because of the scarcity of both resources and people to do the work. If we implemented policy solutions like increasing the LIHTC allocations to states or making Section 8 vouchers an entitlement to those who qualify, our country would certainly be capable of producing high-quality, affordable housing at the necessary scale. Now, both of those, the LIHTC is a supply...
Okay, this is cringe. The Daily Wire's decline. Let me get a Red Bull. Hold on.